Hi everyone and welcome back to another video for Phantasy Star Online 2 New Genesis. In today's video we're going to be looking at another in the series of the weapon guides for new players to the game. And today we're going to be looking at the Wired Lance, which is a weapon used by the Hunter class. So we're going to break down the basic combo of the weapon, we're going to look at the Photon Arts, and we're also going to look at any skills that affect Wired Lance as well. So Wired Lance was a weapon that was originally introduced in Phantasy Star Online 2. And what it is essentially is it looks a little bit like a claw or a blade that's mounted to each arm. And within it is a wire that allows you to attack things from range. So it is treated still as a melee weapon. It's just that it's a melee weapon that has a bit of a horizontal range to it as well. You can see it kind of whips the enemies. So the basic combo for Wired Lance, your first attack is this quick double hit. Following that, got another double hit. Following that, you've got a hit that basically hits with both at the same time. Then at the end, you've got a little jump and slam as well. So the full combo with Wired Lance is it's quite a quick weapon. So that's how the basic combo works. It does have quite wide range, and a lot of the attacks on Wired Lance will hit multiple enemies as well, because as you can see, it kind of lashes. So any enemies that are caught in that range will get hit as well. But next up, we've got the weapon action. So the weapon action, as standard, when you press it without any directional input, it does this, and it's kind of hard to see what it does. What this actually does is, if you target an enemy with it, even if I go from range and I press the Wired Lance button now, the weapon action button, it actually attacks. Now, there is actually even more to this. So if I attack something that's got a little bit more health, so let's say this guy here, and I attack him with the Wired Lance weapon action, you see it just lashes. However, there is actually more to this. If you hold directions, it will actually input how the weapon action works. So we'll come back to that because I believe it's actually affected by your skills. But as standard, you've got the basic sort of lash, which is that. However, if you hold towards an enemy, you will actually dash into it and kick them as well. Again, if I hold towards the enemy, you can actually chain it as well. You can see it does allow you to close in really, really quickly. So Wired Lance is a really, really good weapon for getting in on enemies quickly. So next up, we're going to look at the different Photon Arts for Wired Lance. The Wired Lance, like most weapons in the game, has 4 different Photon Arts. So we have Cutting Layer, Vein Mixture, Turbulent Train, and Hellish Fall. So the first one is Cutting Layer. It just says launch a wide attack in front of you repeatedly. So what this does, it just does a series of hits in front of you. It hits multiple enemies. And it's just basically a really fast way of getting multiple hits in. It's quite decent DPS overall as well. So really simple. Should note with this as well, if you hold the button down, it will just keep recycling the first part of that Photon Art, and it won't do the last hit until you either run out of PP or let go of the button. And when you let go, it will do the last part. So you can chain it into an even longer combo. So that is Cutting Layer. Next one is Vein Mixture. This is spin and cleave through enemies before unleashing a powerful final blow. Can be used while moving. So without any directional input, it's basically like an AoE peer that hits all around you. But as it said, you can actually use it while moving as well. So you can see it actually changes how it works a little bit. And again, you can continually spin with it until you run out of PP or until you release the button. That's kind of a running thing with a lot of the Wildlands Photon Arts, and that they are loopable until you release the PA button or run out of PP. You can see you can just like do it to move around. As soon as you release, it does that last part. So that's Vein Mixture. The next one is Turbulent Train. So this is launch a vertical slash while spinning aggressively. So this is... It's like a much slower Photon Art than the first one. I believe it does more damage per hit, but it's just a focused attack on mainly on one enemy. It will hit multiples, but they need to be quite close together. And then finally we have Hellish Fall, which is very similar to an old PSO2 Photon Art, which I think in PSO2 it was called Heavenly Fall, so it's a nice change to the name. So Hellish Fall, there's quite a lot to this. So when you strike an enemy, you leap into the air and follow up with a powerful overhead attack. Charge to launch an alternate attack. While charging, you take less damage and cannot be knocked back or launched. However, being hit twice will interrupt your charge and unleash the attack. There's a lot to take in there. So the first part of it, with this Photon Art, if you do it without being locked onto anything, it won't actually do anything because it's actually a grapple. So you actually need to grab onto the enemy to do it. So again, if I go in close and do it, you can see I kind of launch off the enemy and then come down on them. You can also charge the Photon Art, as it said. If you charge it, it increases the power. I'll take reduced damage and reduced knockback, so... And if something attacks me twice, if they will do it, there's one. And you see, as soon as I got hit twice, I did like a massive explosion that did loads of damage. Again, if I charge... Obviously thought better of it. It's hit me once, I take reduced damage, and then as soon as I get hit the second time, I release that and do a big hit that does tons of damage. So you essentially use it to try and tank attacks with, because you take reduced damage, and while you're taking the reduced damage, if you take hits twice, you'll release that big hit. That's kind of how Hellish Fall works. I should note that while you're charging it as well, at any point you can just release the charge and do the like the overhead attack. Again, if I go up here and just target one of these guys, if I charge it, then release, I just do like a big overhead attack on them. There's quite a few different ways that you can use Hellish Fall, so it's quite a versatile Photon Art, and it is one of your big damage sources for, particularly if you're on downs on bosses and things like that. It's quite good for getting the damage in. That's how the Photon Arts work for Wildlands. So next up, we're going to look at some of the skills that affect Wildlands particularly. So if we go into the Hunter class skills, things that specifically affect Wildlands. Honestly, slow landing charge Hunter is actually really, really useful for Wildlands because it allows you to stay in the air a lot easier. Obviously, you've got things like Hunter Arts Avenger. They're going to be useful on any Hunter weapon, but particularly on things like Wildlands. So as you can see, it says taking a hit while within a set time of using a Photon Art increases the Photon Art potency. So that in combination with something like Hellish Fall is really, really deadly because you get the bonus from Avenger as well. So next up, particularly for Wildlands, so we've got Wired Attack Extra, which is just, it adds an extra attack onto your Wildlands combo, which I've already covered. Next up we have Wired Anchor Advanced. So this is inputting forward or back when a weapon action is activated moves you in that direction with the attack. That's what I showed earlier, where you kind of pull yourself towards the enemy and kick them. Inputting right or left, it performs an area of effect attack that continues as long as the weapon action is pressed down. This is really, really interesting. So with this skill, I've already showed you the forward and back part of it, but if you input left or right, it completely changes the weapon action. Again, if I go over to these guys and target one of them, and if I press right or left while I do the weapon action, start spinning the Wildlands around my head. And it will speed up and speed up and speed up, and then eventually you finish it with one massive hit at the end. So it's a really, really good way of taking care of things that are all gathered around you. And that last hit's actually really decent damage as well. It's actually not bad DPS, to be honest. So again, just to do that, you do the wide lance weapon action, but you just hold right or left after you've done it. Obviously, you do have to actually hit the enemy with the first initial lunge. So that first sort of stab with the wide lances, that has to hit an enemy. Once that hits, then if you hold left or right and hold the weapon action down, you'll do that whip combo that I've just shown you. So next up, we have Crossing Feather. So Crossing Feather is an active skill that goes on your sub palette, and what it does, it unleashes a powerful forward attack slash by expending gauge built up via attacking. So if you look at my sub palette at the bottom, you can see on this icon here, this is Crossing Feather, and above it there's a little gauge which is partially filled. Now this gauge builds up by attacking an enemy with wide lances, and once it's full, this will light up. You can activate the skill, and it basically just does a massive attack that does loads of damage. So it's just something you want to build up and just use when it's available. On bosses, you probably want to save it for when there's a break or a down, because it is one of your big damage sinks for wide lance. So you don't just want to waste it at any time. But you basically build that up by just continually attacking with wide lance. So next up, we have Wide Anchor Perfect Parry. This is negate enemy attacks when a weapon action is activated. So whenever you do the weapon action, you get a parry out of it. Simple as that. Next up, we have Wide Anchor Avenger. This is when Hunter Arts Avenger is triggered, following the Photon Art up with a weapon action increases the potency. So it just basically buffs your weapon action after you've activated Hunter Arts Avenger. So again, it's quite heavily focused around using Avenger and basically using Photon Arts to parry. Then we have Wide Avenger Range Collection. This is always maximizes the potency increase based on the distance of Photon Art unleashed by Hunter Arts Avenger. It's quite hard to follow the wording of that, but I think what it means is that your damage doesn't drop off at range. I could be wrong on that though, because it's really not worded very well. Then we have Wide Anchor Strike Back. This is after learning Wide Anchor Perfect Parry, when you successfully neutralize an attack using a weapon action, Hunter Arts Avenger is applied to the next Photon Art you use. So you can parry with a weapon action and then use a Photon Art, and you'll automatically get the Hunter Arts Avenger buff from it. So that's really, really strong. That makes Wide Lance really, really versatile. Because if you think you could parry an attack and then go into something like Hellish Fall, and then potentially even parry some more attacks while you're charging Hellish Fall and then get a huge damage boost out of it. But even going into something like any of your sort of general DPS PAs, you're going to get a big damage boost from the Hunter Arts Avenger. So, and that's actually all there is to it. So there actually isn't many skills at all for Wide Lance. It's definitely one of the simpler weapons in regards to skills. The actual combo, again, is fairly simple to get used to. The main sort of difficulty with Wide Lance is getting used to learning to use the Hunter Arts Avenger, and particularly for things like the weapon action, learning when is the best times to use which variant of the weapon action. You know, occasionally you are just going to want to dash directly towards an enemy and get in on it. Sometimes you want to actually back away from it. Sometimes you want to use that AoE attack where you spin the Wide Lance around your head and hit things that are all around you. It's going to depend a lot on the different situations that you come across. So learning to sort of when to use your Wide Lance weapon action in the best way will definitely improve your efficiency with the weapon. And then you also just want to bear in mind when to use when to use your parry to get the boost out of Hunter Arts Avenger. So it's quite parry focused, and again, like all of the other Hunter weapons, it does focus heavily on that Hunter Arts Avenger skill. So you definitely want to make sure that you've got that learned and make sure that you're comfortable with using it. So you want to be using your Photon Arts to parry with. But with Wide Lance, you also have the option to use that weapon action and then lead into a Photon Art from that. So there is quite a lot of versatility to the weapon. The other real good benefit of Wide Lance for Hunter as well is it's one of the only Hunter weapons that's really good for hitting high targets. Because with the weapon action, when you latch onto an enemy, if the target is quite high, providing you're within a certain distance of it, you will actually pull yourself up towards it. So on things like Dital bosses, on the cores that are quite high on the body, if you double jump and then use your weapon action and pull yourself towards it, you will actually gain height and you actually pull yourself up into the air, up to so that you're level with the core. So it's a really, really good weapon for getting up to high points and staying there, particularly if you've got a slow landing charge learned as well, because you'll be able to stay in the air a bit better. You can also just keep using the weapon action every so often to maintain your air height as well. That's definitely one of the main benefits of Wildlands over Sword and Partisan. I think that's more or less it though for Wildlands. It is, like I said, overall a very, very simple weapon to use. If you've got any questions at all about how it works or anything else to do with NGS or even other Phantasy Star games, just leave them in the comments below and I'll try and answer what I can. We are moving to 2 videos a week now, so we're going to be doing 1 video on weekends and 1 video midweek as well. So if you've got any suggestions for things you want me to cover, just leave them in the comments below. You can also hit me up on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, at section_Skyline. Feel free to ask me things on there, and I will take things into consideration when I'm making new videos. But for the meantime, hope this has been useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.